Hey guys, it's Miss Lassiter. I'm going to walk through these word problems with you. I would suggest listening to my explanation and then making sure you take the notes from the solving of the problem onto your piece of paper. The first problem, which you should have in front of you, says Hector, Teddy, and Jim scored a total of 4,670 points playing a video game. Teddy scored 316 points less than Hector. Teddy scored 3 times as many points as Jim. How many points did Teddy score? So when I start a problem like this, the first thing I think of is who scored the least amount, and Jim would be the one that scored the least. So I make J stand for Jim, and I draw a little rectangle representing Jim's amount. And then I draw a T for Teddy, and he scored 3 times as much as Jim, so I put 3 rectangles together. And then Hector, it says that Teddy scored 316 points less than Hector, so he has these same 3 rectangles, plus he has 316. And then the total that they all scored is a total of 4,670. So then I know that these 7 rectangles, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 316 points, so I call each rectangle a unit. So 7 units plus 316 is equal to 4670. So then if I subtract 316 from both sides, I get that 7 units should be 4354, I believe. Then what I want to think about is, well, if I know the price of 7 units, then 1 unit is going to equal 4354 divided by 7, and I end up with 622 points. So I now know each rectangle stands for 622 points. The question is, how many points did Teddy score? So Teddy is worth 3 rectangles, so he is 3 times 622, which ends up being 1,866 points. And that's the answer to the problem. The second problem reads, the cost of 4 belts and 5 ties is $247. Each tie costs 3 times as much as a belt. What is the total cost of a tie and a belt? So I think which is less? A belt is less. So I let a belt equal 1 rectangle, and a tie would then equal 3 rectangles. And then they tell us that he bought 4 belts and 5 ties. So I have 1 belt, 2 belt, 3 belt, 4 belts, and then he bought 5 ties. So 1, 2, 3, that's 1 tie, 2 tie, 3 tie, 4 tie, and 5 tie. And he spent a total of $247. So then I see that there are a total of 19 units, 19 little rectangles. So 19 units is equal to 247. So 1 unit is going to equal 247 divided by 19. And it ends up, so 1 unit equals $13. So then I know that a belt is $13 and a tie is 3 times 13, which is $39. And the question is, how much is a tie and a belt? So a tie plus a belt equals 13 plus 39 for a total of $52. This third problem talks about a florist had an equal number of red and yellow tulips. She sold 624 red tulips. Then she had 4 times as many yellow tulips as red tulips. How many tulips did she have at first? So this is kind of a before and after. So I have my red tulips and my yellow tulips, and she had the same amount. I'm going to write R for red, Y for yellow. And then she sold some of the red tulips, so afterwards she only had some left, and then she then had 4 times as many yellow tulips as red tulips. But this part, so this is again my red and this is my yellow, and then I'm going to use a dotted line to represent what she sold. And so this would represent 3 sections, and they told us that it was 624 tulips. So 3 units is equal to 624, so 1 unit equals 624 divided by 3, and now you can hear the phone ringing at my house, which is equal to 208 tulips. But the question is, how many tulips did she have in the beginning? And she had, so the whole red bar and yellow bar, so that would be a total of 8 units. So the total tulips should equal 8 times 208, which is equal to 1,664 tulips. This problem is very similar to the last problem. It says Ella and Michelle had $1,250. Ella and Surya had $830. Michelle had 4 times as much as Surya. How much did Ella have? So I would think about the relationship between Michelle and Surya first, and Michelle had 4 times as much. So I'm going to let Surya be 1 rectangle, and Michelle would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Ella, I'm just going to let it equal a long rectangle. And it's not meant to be the same length or any relationship in particular between Surya's and Michelle's. So then I draw Ella's and Surya's, and I make that be a total of $830. And then I draw Ella's and Michelle's, and that is a total of 1,250. So this is Ella's. And then you can see the difference between these 2 bars is the 3 units. So the 3 units is equal to the difference between 1,250 and 830. And when I do 1,250 minus 830, I get 420. So 1 unit is equal to 420 divided by 3, which is equal to $140. But the question is, how much money did Ella have? So I look at the first bar, this bar right here, and I know that the total was $830. So if I subtract the 1 unit, so 830 minus 140, that equals $690 for Ella. A quick check would be to make sure that 690 plus 4 of those 140 equals 1,250. So 690 plus 4 times 140, and it does indeed equal 1,250. So that confirms that my answer is correct. This next problem reads, Mandy is 12 years old and Natcha is 15 years older. In how many years will Natcha be twice as old as Mandy? So I make a chart, and I use M for Mandy's age and N for Natcha's age, and then a question mark. Is it twice Mandy's? So at time now, Mandy is 12 and Natcha is 15 years older, so she is 27. And no, it's not twice, so it's not now. In 1 year, Mandy will be 13 and Natcha will be 28. And no, that's not twice. In 2 years, Mandy will be 14 and Natcha will be 29. That is not twice. In 3 years, Mandy is 15 and Natcha is 30. And I say, yes, this is when Natcha is twice as old. So the answer to the question is in 3 years. This next problem is one of my favorite kind. It states that there are 20 cars and motorcycles all together in a parking lot. The total number of wheels is 50. How many motorcycles are there? So again, this is a chart problem. I make a C for cars and an M for motorcycles. I know that cars have 4 wheels and motorcycles have 2. And so what I want to do is I want to hold this part constant. The cars plus motorcycles has to add to 20. So I'm going to start with 10 and 10. And the way I would calculate the number of wheels is each car has 4 wheels, so 4 times 10 plus each motorcycle has 2 times 10. And when I add that together, I get 60. And I say, does that equal 50? And I say no. So I need fewer wheels, so I want more motorcycles, less cars. So I'm going to bump cars down to 8 and motorcycles up to 12. So to calculate wheels, I do 4 times 8 plus 2 times 12. So it's 32 plus 24, which is 56. And that's not 50, but it's getting closer. So I bump it down again, 6 and 14. So I do 4 times 6 plus 2 times 14. And that's 24 plus 28, which is 52. Not quite there. And I can notice that when the cars went down by 2, the number of wheels went down by 4. And again, so I'm going to just bump it down once, 5 and 15, and see I'm holding these steady state to a total of 20. I do 4 times 5 plus 2 times 15, so I have 20 plus 30, which is 50. And so then I know this is the right solution, but it says how many motorcycles are there? So there are 15 motorcycles. So hopefully this worked for you, listening to the explanation and then going back in and taking notes. Thank you.